Happy Sabbath. Uh, as I have said in the forum chat that we are going to review the study of the 14th Amendment of the United States. And before I proceed, if you are not getting me clearly, please, you have to let me know in the group chat, and I will adjust my English a little bit. Thank you. Uh, I have requested the 14th Amendment to be shared by Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. And at this point, let me assume that everyone have read the 14th Amendment. If you have not read the 14th Amendment, please let me know. That means everybody have read the 14th Amendment. So, and we have all watched, okay, thank you. And we have all watched the video that I have shared of Elder Pamenda, him going through the 14th Amendment. And uh, also for the public record, I'm not a U.S. citizen, uh, and being not a U.S. citizen does not mean that I cannot understand the U.S. Constitution. All of us have the right to understand what it means and how it apply to people of USA as citizens. And at this point, I will act as somebody who's a U.S. citizen for a moment. And also, if you
Oh, I thought you asked a question. I was going to have you repeat it, but that's okay. I'm sorry.
no, I did not. I was like, I'm going to act as a U.S. citizen. I'm not a U.S. citizen. Like being here, I'm on a F1 visa, which is like a student visa. I'm not a U.S. citizen per se. To just say that, and and I was like, I'm going to act as a U.S. citizen to understand the U.S. Constitution or the 14th Amendment. Thank you. So the 14th Amendment has 5 sections. Uh, one section talk about citizens, who is supposed to be a U.S. citizen. Then the second one talk about the state representative, how the state representative should be elected or should be appointed. The third talk about uh, having the office of the or working in the U.S. government at a federal or state level. If you have contributed or participated in a rebellion against the U.S. government, you shouldn't hold an office of any case, whether like civil or at the government level. And then the fourth talk about the debt. And then the fifth, like the Congress has the power to this article or to enforce all of this. The Congress, that means like the House of Representatives and the Senate, the Senate House. And at this point, I think we know the Congress to the fullest that the House of Representatives consists of 435 members, and the Senate has 100 uh, members that represent each 50 state, two at each state. I mean, combined together, making them like 100 senators. I think we all know that. So the 14th Amendment has dealt with a lot, has been challenged a lot, and it has also like provide a clarity a lot of things, whether you being a U.S. citizen or you being protected by the law. And if I'm not mistaken, Elder Pamenda, when he was doing this presentation about the 14th Amendment, it was before Roe v. Wade was overturned in June 2022, I think. And he did this presentation in 2021. For me, I was like, wow, it seemed like he saw this one coming. And with him presenting the 14th Amendment, he did not went into depth into how Roe v. Wade was put in place and how it was, and if somebody want to overturn it, how is it going to be done through the Constitution? He just went on how it connected to the law of same-sex marriage, of which it was a big deal back then in 2005, and also it was also uh, an argument also brought in 2015 that it was put in the U.S. Constitution that by Obama administration in 2015. So Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022. I want us to go through that. I'm not an expert of the U.S. Constitution, but if we can just open our mind and discuss the 14th Amendment on how Roe v. Wade came into be amended into Constitution to protect abortion and how it was overturned in 2022. So I'm going to ask all of us a question, and feel free to just discuss how it was amended in 1973, I guess, January, and how it was overturned. What was the opinion of the Supreme Court in 1973, and what was the opinion of the Supreme Court in 2022 to overturn Roe v. Wade? Can anyone give me why Roe v. Wade was amended has a right of U.S. citizen to have an abortion at the federal level?
Can you restate that question?
My question is that why was Roe v. Wade a right at the federal level?
Was it because of the right of privacy?
Yeah. Thank you. It was because of the right of the privacy, which is also in 14th Amendment. And as a private citizen, you have right. And also, like, what is that right? Like, what are like private citizen right?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So
I would add due process of law also.
the due process of law, which is like the Fifth Amendment, also it's also here in the 14th Amendment.
That's what I was thinking, the citizenship, equal protection, and due process.
Thank you. So back then it was ruled by the U.S. Supreme Court that a U.S. citizen has a right to privacy, of which abortion was termed as a private right for all American citizens, either born or naturalized. Let me say that. So it was a right for a U.S. citizen to do abortion back then, and it was ruled by Supreme Court at the federal level for all these states. And in 2022, it was overturned by the Supreme Court, not the same people, but their argument was that abortion right was not uh, a citizen's right by then. By the time the 14th Amendment was written, so if you go back, that was the argument to overturn the abortion right and take it back to the state to decide whether a citizen can have abortion or not. So if we look from the way it was also ruled at the federal level and the way it was ruled at the end of it in 2022, you can see that there's a really big difference. They're not denying that it is not a U.S. citizen's right. What they're saying is that at first place, when it was written originally, like those who put the amendment, like the amendment into place, they never thought of it like, oh, abortion is also part of my right. So this one has to be included. That does that not make sense?
Do you mean because the way that it was written was purely for male citizens?
No.
Because I was thinking that the reason that they didn't think it was a right because it was everything was written for males, not considering females and their rights.
Okay.
I think there's also the issue that the issue of privacy is not explicitly stated in the Constitution,
Yes.
but it's implied in a number of our, I think, Bill of Rights or other amendments, and that's how they came to their decision in 1973, which was based on a decision made in 1965 by the Supreme Court, Griswold, where they overturned a Connecticut law banning contraceptive use for married couples. And in the history of the right for a woman to determine her reproductive process, the radical feminists at the time felt that, and even I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg felt that the decision reached by the Supreme Court for Roe v. Wade was on a weak foundation.
Okay. Thank you. So as like the way they overturn it, so as you can see from the issue of contraceptive and also the way it was put in place, that it was not explicitly written that, hey, this is your private right can be anything at that point. So, and the way it was overturned is you can see that what I'm trying to say is that like the current U.S. Supreme Court did not like actually disagree with how the weight was put in place. What they were saying that if it is not explicitly written there, that means should not be a right. So we mean like they're going back to the way it was written originally, of which was it Susan before said that it was written by men and men were not considering a lot of women right. So, and that one is really difficult to challenge them on that issue, seeing it was written by men and the way male were thinking back then, we're not considering women health or women right at that point. So we can say that the current Supreme Court, they can have a right to do that, but also at the same point, they are going against the U.S. Constitution, because women also have right, even if you don't know what women rights are, or uh, let me say, women, even if you don't know women health and they know what is healthy for them, you don't have a right to tell them no, that is not healthy for you as a male, because you don't have that right. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think in the, let's see, there was a Senate hearing for a confirmation of, I can't remember his name, one of Trump's Supreme Court candidates. I think he's the young man.
Kavanaugh,
Anyway, pardon?
Brett Kavanaugh.
Governor?
Kavanaugh. Who's the other one?
There's
Kavanaugh,
Governor and
not Amy Gorsuch. I think it might be Gorsuch, but it could, anyway, I'm sorry. It's either one of those two men. And Kamala Harris was a senator at the time, and she directly asked him if there were any laws
It was
affecting.
Kavanaugh.
Okay, Kavanaugh, great, thanks. Team effort. Do you remember the question she asked this man?
yeah,
Do you know of any, I mean, it was really bold, and it
yeah,
was really like,
I think she
go
was
ahead.
like, is there like a law that constitute male why do I forgot a little bit, that constitute male from, like, the way about abortion is like, hey, women should not have abortion, like there's like a law that's
You mean
constitute
law?
male only, that they should not do
Yes,
this.
it's a,
And he was like,
yes,
no, I don't know about that.
yes.
So you can see, as long males are making the laws, they don't consider women. I mean, even if they want to consider women, they don't know what women uh, rights should be. So instead of consulting women, they don't do that. They just go by what they think is right. And according to U.S. Constitution, if you are putting amendment in place, it should be what is right for all, not only one gender or one particular group. It should be for all. So you can see that scenario play along with the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment has a lot of things in it, a lot, really, really a lot. It has touched a lot, and I would say it was not perfect in its setting when it was ratified in '68. It was not in its perfect form, because it was still one gendered sided. Or was not even one gendered sided. It was like male, white male only. Because like black male were not considered uh, part of it by then, and women were not at the same point. So it was not in its perfect form. So if you are saying that we are not going to correct the 14th Amendment, that means that you have to keep things the way they were back then in 1866, in 1868. That means black people will not be citizens, and anyone born in the U.S. will not be a citizen. You're going to like really there will be no due process of the law. You're going to like take away a lot of things that makes America America, instead of uh, uh, making the 14th Amendment clear as it was intended. So like a lot of things like women right to vote, 19th Amendment was because of 14th Amendment. Also, the 26th Amendment that lowered the age of voting or participating in political arena was also because of 14th Amendment. A lot of laws that came out of 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment about black black men having right to vote, all of them were trying uh, to make 14th Amendment uh, intention or idea as clear as it should be. The same to Roe v. Wade when it was put as federal law in 1973. It was the same part, but the mistake was made. It was not made an amendment. If it was made an amendment, I think it would be really hard for the Supreme Court to overturn it. But it was not put as an amendment. It was just as a right, of which it was not well established. I would say it that way. Any comment or thought?
Oh, I see you. Yeah. You can see it's a complicated situation for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sarah Nyanyal said originalism is what they base their interpretation on. It takes understanding dispensation to really understand where the conservative justice are coming from.
Can I back up?
Yeah.
I don't know if you just clarified it or not, but in the beginning you said the amendment of Roe v. Wade or something to that effect, and it wasn't an amendment, but I think maybe you just said that Roe v. Wade was just an interpretation of the 14th Amendment, but it itself was not an amendment that was overturned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I was like, if it was an amendment, it was going to be really hard for them to overturn.
Yeah, if it had been a real amendment, yes, if it actually had been an amendment,
Yeah.
it would have been more difficult for them to overturn, I think.
Overturn. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like there's no amendment for equal rights. It's been out there, but it's never been actually put into the Constitution.
That's true. It is also part of this 14th Amendment, but it has not been put to Constitution for it to be permanent as it is. So
yeah, you kind of cut out for me, but
thank you. Any thought?
It's also interesting because Elder Parmenter pointed out that the 14th Amendment is sandwiched. It's in between the 13th Amendment, which was about slavery, and the 15th Amendment, which is about citizenship and voting, right?
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting.
Thank you.
I know that just a little thing that I know that I think it's the League of Women Voters, they're petitioning Joe Biden to pass the ERA to make it put it into the Constitution. I don't know if he's going to do that, but they want him to.
I don't see that there would be time, right? Wouldn't you have to have a constitutional convention and they've set to make an amendment?
Well, I know that they have all the votes and they have all the things that they need to do it. It's just they're saying that all they actually really need is President Biden to instruct the U.S. Archives to certify and publish the ERA into the Constitution, because they have all the votes. They have met.
I don't think they do actually, because 5 states want to withdraw. 3 finally they fulfilled the required number, but then I think it was within the last several years that another 5 states were withdrawing. So I actually don't think that they have the numbers anymore.
Yeah, well, this is just about a month, maybe less than a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, they were pressuring him. I don't know what the details of it is, but they were pressuring him, along with everybody else trying to get Joe Biden to pass a lot of things.
There's that thing, that amendment going on, and that group is lobbying for that amendment to be passed, but we don't know whether it will be passed or not, because like Biden has 17 days left now of his presidency. If he can do that, good. If he can, then uh, I don't think in Trump administration is going to be passed at any point.
So, Emmanuel, just to comment, when I was reviewing about the 14th Amendment presented by Elder Parmenter, this is the most important amendment out of all of them, and is the protection of the people federally. And the Roe v. Wade overturning that made the federal law, annul and go to the state rights now. I think that's what Trump is going to keep it. Let the states decide what they want to do about the abortion issue. And also the LGBTQ, that one is also federally protected. And we'll see what Trump does. But this is a federal protection against the state, what the states do.
Thank you, Glory. Alabama said, this is the most important amendment in all of 27 amendment. And to say that means that this amendment has like the ideal of Americanism. Like, if you say I'm American, this is you. This is America in its idealistic form. Let me say, like the U.S. Constitution is the USA. Without U.S. Constitution, there's no USA. So, and this amendment like put everything that the founding fathers were trying to view as America in one place. And though it was put in one place, still there was a lot of things that were not clarified, and there were a lot of things that were one gender in that, if I can say it that way. But still, it has the ideal of really what Americans should be like. That everybody is protected by the law. If you are born in America or naturalized to be a U.S. citizen, you have also a right to due process of the law. You also have a privilege and immunities that the state cannot take away your right. So all of them, they're all in this state. And if you can see, this 14th Amendment has been attacked a lot of time. If you have read the news, recently Trump said that he wanted to do away with the birthright citizenship. He's going to go against 14th Amendment, and he's going to fight that if he want to do that. So is there a way that he can get around the 14th Amendment to do away with birthright citizenship? You can see, like, everyone who attack minorities or individuals attack the 14th Amendment at first. It's like the center of all the 27th Amendment.
Yet Elder Parmenter called it midway because it is sandwiched between the 13th and the 15th, so it's midway. And the other interesting thing is that the way the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade was by returning it back to the states, right? And that's something Elder Parmenter brought out, that the states can make really egregious laws, like extreme laws, and that baits the people to take those cases back to the Supreme Court. So if you take it back to the Supreme Court, now that we have the conservative lean, right, on the Supreme Court, by making those egregious laws in the states, causes people to take it back to the court, and then the Supreme Court can then ultimately overturn it. And that was the disintegration. They hate the federal overarching protection that the Constitution was to provide.
Sorry about that.
Right? Sorry, Emmanuel, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. I went to close my window. The light was too bright in my eye.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking, because we've done a lot of studies in our fellowship group about the federal protections and all the attacks on the federal, right? Because the federal is what keeps the United States united. Once it's given back to the states to have individual freedom, so to speak, they can dismantle state by state the overarching protection that the Constitution provided federally. And even in the 14th, Trump shouldn't have even been able to run for president because he committed conspiracy to, overturn the government, which is rebellion, right? Which is written into this 14th Amendment. But you would have to have all the states united under the 14th in order to have prevented Trump. I mean, they tried, but they didn't have enough power behind them because the states are so divided now. But yeah, the 14th, you can see it's all about the 14th.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Any comment? Also, to us as the movement, there are 27 amendments. That's correct. To us as the movement, all of us have, as Alabama said, that we have to have opinions on the U.S. Constitution, how it is interpreted by the Supreme Court. And by doing that, we need to understand the U.S. Constitution, each of them one by one. For example, if Trump is going to stay in office for another third term, what does that mean? That means he's going to go against the 22nd Amendment. So they will do away with it. And we need to understand how 22nd Amendment also came into to be an amendment. So all of this, all the events that we have been talking about, all the changes, they are all about the rule of laws and the rule of constitution. If you want to understand why all these things are happening the way they're happening, you need to understand the constitution. You need to understand the laws even if you're not a lawyer or you don't want to be an attorney, is your right to understand all the U.S. Constitution. Even as just a U.S. citizen, you have to, because like once if you get into trouble, let me say while driving or into accident, anything you do here in the United States and you get into trouble, they will hold you against the U.S. Constitution as a U.S. citizen. If you know your Constitution and somebody is discriminating against you, you can refer them to consider, hey, I have a right to do this according to this section, this Constitution, in this amendment. So you'll be able to protect yourself with the U.S. Constitution. So it is, I would say, it should be our duty for all of us to understand all the U.S. Constitution, all the U.S. amendment, all of them 27 amendments, all of them. I don't think they should just put them in your mind, but you should really understand what each one meant and how it was written originally, and how the Supreme Court interpreted it based on any argument that is brought to them. For example, the argument about Trump and the USA, you should understand what is going on between Trump and USA. What amendment was Trump trying to overturn or to break when he conspired against the state to bring in vote and to that the election was rigged. So all of this, everything that's happening externally is all about the Constitution. You cannot go around it. If you go around it, it will not work. And based on this, it seems like based on the Supreme Court now, because like most of it now, let me say 6 of them are like conservative, and 3 are the ones that are liberal. And based on that way, you are not going to cry like, hey, the Supreme Court is conservative. That's why they do this. No, you cannot just say that. What you need to do is to understand the Constitution. Even if they are conservative or not, you need to understand the Constitution to understand where they're coming from. And I would say also internally, with the movement, I find this one really, really fascinating that we kind of have the same thing that is going on. I'm just suggesting, I'm not saying this is definite, that we are having the same issue in the movement. If you go through the how the movement began with the LJB, putting in place the line upon line methodology, and how the movement have developed with the methodology for a time until this present, we are at the point of Sunday law. It's the same thing that is happening inside. The methodology that was established versus the argument that people bring into the methodology, onto the methodology, and all the checking that have been happening. It is all an attack on methodology. I'm suggesting, I'm not saying that's what it is. Some could be like leadership, but also leadership is also connected to methodology. So the same thing that's happening outside is the same thing that is happening inside. We have our Constitution, which is methodology that guide us through the time. And for all of us to be aligned with methodology, we need, if we come up with argument, the argument have to align with the correct methodology. Does that make sense? That means we have to understand methodology correctly. At the same way, also at the same point, we need to understand U.S. Constitution externally to understand the external event, and also to understand internal event correctly. Go ahead.
I agree with you. And it is all about methodology, but both sides are saying that they are using methodology, and both sides are using the same internally, the Bible, spirit of prophecy, and what Elder Tess and Elder Parmenter have said in the past. They're using those same words, both sides, to prove their own points. Just like the Republicans and the Democrats use the same Constitution to prove their own point. It gets twisted up no matter what, because each side sees it their own way. It's frustrating.
Thank you. It is.
I'm not sure if this is the same on the same line of thought, but we've been given a telltale hint, and it's more than a hint. It's a very strong hint, because even though both sides claim to be on the same methodology internally, we've got Elder Parminder saying maximum flood. If you're going to even use that name, interpret that as a symbol. And then we've got another methodology saying spheres of influence, and maybe false doctrine. So you can see it's very visual. From that sermon onwards, from that presentation onwards, it was completely visual. It wasn't subtle.
Also, that's what I was going to say too. Well, like if you see with the external event like the U.S. Constitution outside, you can see there's the Supreme Court. Some of them can use originalism to interpret the Constitution. Some of them can go in a progressive way to understand the U.S. Constitution. If you bring it internally, you can also see like our methodology has to each way of interpreting our work, and it cannot be like we can say, oh, we are both of them are using methodology to interpret. So like a methodology always come to right things. If you use methodology correctly, you always come to the right conclusion, no matter what, no matter whatever you are studying on. If you use it correctly with the rules of rule of William Miller, and line upon line, you at the end you're going to come to the right conclusion, no matter what. So for us to also have an opinion on who is using the right methodology, we need to lay out this is what methodology said, and this is how you interpret this symbol this way. If the methodology said that you cannot interpret this symbol that way, then you cannot, unless you have to, I don't know, find a loophole in methodology. Like, hey, also you can do that, but I don't think you can find a loophole like the way you can find a loophole in the amendment or in the U.S. Constitution. There are a lot of ways you can find a loophole in Constitution and go around it, but with our methodology, for you to find a loophole is really hard for someone to do that.
So, Emmanuel, the Constitution, I think at one point it was considered how you read, because everyone's reading the same Constitution, and that's in the external. So would the same apply to methodology? It's how you read internally?
I would say like it's not just only about how you read. So like if you read it, we all can all come to the same conclusion if we read it the same way. Even like with the U.S. Constitution, you can read it the same way Supreme Court read it, but it will come down to interpretation. If you want to how are you going to interpret what you read? So like
Exactly.
the
That's
U.S.
so how you read is how you interpret.
Yeah.
Equals how you interpret. So the Constitution is the same document read by different people with different conclusions. And now we see that with methodology, right?
Yeah. And we want to say something?
No, I'm finished.
Okay. So uh, I would say like we have progressed a lot with the methodology since 1989. I don't know if you can see that, but we have progressed a lot, and we have uh, if I can use the word rectify, or we how can I say? I'm trying to find a word, either modify it or like make it concrete, like the U.S. Constitution, for it to be that not only one person can change it, but it has to be a referendum. So does that make sense? That with our methodology, we have come a long way to put it in that kind of context that it is not easy for one person to just change the methodology at one and put in whatever they think is they should interpret methodology. So it has to be like group of people to do that. So our methodology is like at that point right now, whereby it is very hard for just one person to do away with it.
That's why, going back to Christina's study this morning, Lucifer couldn't commit that rebellion alone. He had to co-opt terms and words and sort of give them new definitions, like liberty and freedom, which were a part of heaven, but he contorted the meaning, right, to build the deception in the other angels' minds. And I think it goes back to fast brain, slow brain, because liberty can have just the word, if you just take the word liberty, it can have an emotional appeal to people. But, and the same with the methodology and how you read. If you aren't clear on certain terms that have been co opted by the far right, like we've been talking, they use the words freedom, right? But we're allowed freedom also. But it's the way that they push buttons and push people's emotions to where people don't think any longer and use logic, right? That's what I'm thinking anyway.
Thank you. Any other thought or comment?
Where does pride fit into all of this?
Can you repeat that, Linda? I couldn't hear what you said.
Where does pride fit into all of this?
I'd say it's huge.
Sorry, I still didn't hear the question. Did you say where does Christ fit into all of this?
No. Where does pride fit into all of
Sorry.
this?
Thank you.
Okay. And yes, I agree with Susan. I don't really believe that the Republicans are mentally incapable of understanding the Constitution correctly, or that internally people are mentally incapable of understanding things.
No.
They choose kind of one, direction or another, kind of like the angels in heaven and kind of like Eve in the Garden of Eden. She, still had a choice.
Yeah, I would say yeah. Everyone is capable of understanding constitution or understanding methodology. It is how much time you put in it to understand it.
Phil has his hand up. Emmanuel.
Sorry, go ahead, Phil. I didn't see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for presenting this. This presentation takes me back to the discussion in this presentation. Takes me back to the presentation that Christina had earlier this morning for Sabbath school. I believe they are very much related. And I'm trying to connect the two thoughts together because I do believe they're related. Now we talk about earlier, Christina talked about the Almighty, the Christ. And I can't remember. Would someone please remind me that there was Christ and not the Father, but what words were replaced? Not
Most
using the
High.
Father, the Most High. Okay, thank you, the Most High. So you got the Most High, you have the Christ. They were, so I'm going to try to shorten this. They were equal, right? And you have male, female, Adam, Eve. They were equal, right? And then you have humanity and Christ. Humanity as bride, Christ as the groom. They were equal. So we're all talking about equality. Right? That's the thought that's running through my mind right now. And prior to what, 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, right? We were on the wrong side of the issue. America was, through its Constitution, on its way towards equality, right? They were fighting for equality, right? That's how America was, in the direction that America was going. They were fighting for equality, right? And that's the direction that they were heading. On the other hand, we as God's people, being on the wrong side of the issue, was inequality, right? We believed in male dominance, female subserviency, and we were on the wrong side of the issue. Then, when Elder Tess, introduced us to equality, and then we are beginning to understand equality, and I think we are understanding better now than before about equality, and we are here because we believe equality, that America now is going back towards inequality. So before, let's just say 5 years ago, we could not see inequality because we were in inequality. So we couldn't see it. And now that we are in equality, we can see inequality. And so going back to this morning's presentation, we can see, and I know we're talking about methodology, right? Lucifer used the methodology, but we're talking about loopholes, and Lucifer found loopholes to make God look bad and make themselves look good, make Lucifer and his followers make them selves look good because he used the methodology, but he found loopholes. And as we know now, you say something that sounds very close and you say it long enough, people are going to start believing it, and that becomes the truth, even though it's false. And we see that's what's happening now. So us going towards equality, this movement going towards equality, we really couldn't understand. Yeah, we know Satan was bad, right? We know he did bad things, but we can't really understand what that inequality looked like in heaven until we see what the inequality looked like today, right now. It's happening right in front of our eyes. We can see it now. 5 years ago, we couldn't see it, but now we can see it. Inequality. There's few powerful people, like saying women's bad, migrants are bad, people of color are bad, and only the few white minority oligarchs or government authorities, they're good. And we can see that clearly because we stand on the side of equality now, whereas before we couldn't see that. So God is helping us to understand what equality is and what inequality is, and we have to reject every bit of inequality because God is making us see clearly now what inequality is all about. We're in it, we're seeing it, we're experiencing it, we're seeing the devastation of inequality, whether it be against migrants or the others that Elder Tess mentioned. The others, the immigrants, the women, the girls, and we have to reject every evidence of inequality because now we don't have any excuses, that because we're seeing it, we're experiencing it, we're living it now, so we don't have any excuses.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phil. Yeah, I can even see equality as the fundamental, I would say as a fundamental right of all human beings. And I'm going to suggest that I don't have proof, but I'm going to suggest that no one can take that away from you. uh, uh, as you have, everyone is equal, and no one can take that. No one can say that you're not equal to that one. No one can say that male and female are not equal in that sense. And we can see the USA Constitution came up with that idea, and also they were not really explicit about it. They were not like really clear about it. And to your point, saying that Satan found a loophole in heaven, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I don't think so. There was any way that you can find a loophole in God government, because like logically, if you're finding a loophole in something, that means that constitution, that law is not really clear, and then and when also you get a loophole and you use it, you will not be penalized or you will not be punished because you are right. That law was not clear, but with the Satan it was different. I would not say he found a loophole because if he found a loophole, he could have not been penalized in heaven for doing that, because a loophole is something that is uh, correct in a way that you will not get punishment, but also sneaky in a way that shows your cleverness in finding something that was wrong, but it was not mentioned direct. So I don't think God has something like that in his sorry, but in God constitution, sort of to use the uh, gender term. So in God's constitution, to find something, leave something blurry or not clear, that if you get it, you are clever than that make you clever than God. I don't think something like that was there to just make it clear. The same with our methodology. As we are developing methodology, I think we have come to the point that it is very hard for anyone to find a loophole at the same point to come out. This was not mentioned, or this parable we are using, or this logic we are using is not clear about something that I can use it also to find something that I want to present, and I will be correct with it. I don't think our methodology will allow you to do that. But anyway, thank you so much for that review. Troy said just inequality is psychologically. Can you repeat what you say, Troy, in the comment section? Oh, can anyone read it for me, please?
Oh dear. I think I was trying to say, Emmanuel, that you know the saying that first the natural, then the spiritual. Yes, you still have the natural aspect, the physical aspect, but inequality now is so subtle that it's even more psychological. You know, you may not see um, a black person on a field, on a plantation, but you know, racism exists. It's more psychological.
Sure, that's true. Oh, thanks for that. And that's the big thing we are really dealing with now with inequality. Instead, you cannot see somebody abusing, let me say, women physically, but with memes and term, and you can see somebody is abusing someone in that way too. But if you can see that, that means really gonna be it's gonna be you can also participate in that if you can see that. Go like in the book I'm reading right now, The Gendered Brain. She says something that like social pain is equal to physical pain. I'm quoting from her. On which I can see the same thing with inequality too. You can torture somebody psychologically, not physically, but it's the same kind of pain that you're putting that person through. Thank you, Troy. Any comment before we close? Question?
I have a comment about the inequality, just you know how this the climate is, or people are voting against their own interests or whatever. There's this anti-racist activist. His name is Tim Wise, and he wrote a book called White Like Me, but he also did a documentary in 2013, and that was named White Like Me. And he alluded to the fact, because you know racism was really, he could see the racism and the inequality and all that, all the inequality that was going on at that time. And he said that people will fight against their own interests purely because they are focused on others not acquiring equality. That seems to be more important to them than equality for themselves, because they believe that equality was wholly designed for them alone from the very beginning. So it's not important for them to vote for their equality when you already believe you already have the edge. What they don't want is for other people, you know, whether you're black, brown, whatever, to get that equality that they believe is theirs alone. So that's kind of what he was, you know, when you're thinking about people and how they, you know, think of equality and how they're just, we wonder why they, you know, why, how they can vote the way they do, how they can, you know, fight for things that are totally against their own interests. It's because they're not thinking about that, because they believe they already have it, because it was given to them from the foundations of this country, were basically white people. So anyway, I thought it was a really good, it helped me to understand why people do what they do and where their minds are. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks so much. And that's like to me, it seemed like a really dangerous ground for you to be in if you put yourself in that kind of situation. Saying that, oh, I already have that. I don't need to. I'm doing it for other people, and also like it doesn't. It does not. I mean, it may put you in a position that you think that you already have it, and other people, mean you are not going to do it right the way it should be done right. If you believe in that kind of way, like, oh, I already got it. They're forgetting for that. You're not going to put more passion or all your energy into that to for them to achieve full equality that you are advocating for because you think you already have it, and you may think that whatever they are advocating is not. That's what I'm saying. If you are doing that kind way, you will not really understand what equality is.
Phil had his hand up again.
Oh,
in case you didn't see it.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was, yeah, I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I said earlier. There is nothing with there's nothing wrong with God's law. God's law is perfect. So I want to put that out there. When I said loophole, I sat and found the loophole. Not that there is any loophole to be found in God's law, but like one of Elder Parmender's recent presentation, and I can't remember which one, but I think it was late last year, late 24. One of his presentations, and Elder Parmender was speaking about when Trump was picking his cabinet during the it's not called vacation, recess, when the when the Congress was in recess. Trump was picking all his cabinets, and there is a law that, and if you look at the intent of that law and how it was written, it was for emergency purposes, right? And Elder Parminder said something like, and I hope somebody's watched this presentation and know the exact word that Elder Parminder used.
I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
But Elder Parminder said something about technically what Trump did was illegal. I think those are the words. Maybe not exact, but those were the words. Something like technically what Trump is doing is illegal. And so the question was asked. I think it was Curtis Robinson. I think he asked the question, why did you, to Elder Parminder, he posed the question, why did you use the caveat technically? If you remember that conversation between Curtis and Elder Parminder. And Elder Parminder explained why he used that word. I'm not sure if that word was technically or something very close. Because this process was, supposed to be for an emergency. If somebody dies, if somebody in the cabinet dies while the Congress was in recess, then you need that cabinet member so that then the president could elect or choose a cabinet member, and then after that, when the Congress comes back, then they can confirm or not confirm. Right. So these rules were written with certain intent for how the government was supposed to operate. Same with God's law. There is no loophole per se, but anybody can say we talk about how you read. You can manipulate. Right? You can manipulate to make the other person look bad. You can manipulate to say that God's law is unfair or this law is unfair. So there's always a way of manipulation. Not that there's anything wrong with the law itself, but there's always a way to manipulate, to step on other people, make other people look bad, and that's perhaps loophole was a bad idea, a bad word, but that's what I meant.
Thank you, thank you. I remember correctly what you were presenting about Elder Pimenta, and I would say that that is deceptive in that way. Like if you manipulate God intentions to do your will, uh, that's just wrong. And if you put it that way, yeah, now it makes sense. With Trump, I mean, also that make that law vulnerable, really, really vulnerable. If there's, if you anyone can with high understanding about the law can find a loophole in that law or in that constitution, that make that constitution really vulnerable uh, of being attacked. So Trump appointing people when the Congress in recession, when I remember was like, uh, technically is illegal, but also it is not in some point that, oh, I mean, it can do it because the Congress is not in session, is in recession. So you can see that there's vulnerability in that law. I mean, that law is really vulnerable, that it can be tempted with easily. So, but the intention of Trump doing that is illegal. So, if I can put it that way. So, with God, if you manipulate God's words, then you are deceiving people, and that's not really good to do that. Thank you. I think I've gone over time, and I have 10 minutes. Okay. Let me just summarize the whole presentation, and then we will close with word of prayer. Or if you still have a comment or question, you will ask it later. Oh, go ahead and ask your question now before I summarize it. Or any thought?
I have a thought, Emmanuel.
Okay.
So you're going over the amendment and the rules that bind the presidency to those amendments and the country to those amendments. But then you have a president that shouldn't be legally there, that doesn't abide by laws or rules that are put out for everybody.
What do you mean? What do you mean by shouldn't be there legally?
Well, according to the law, that anybody who's guilty of sedition should not be running for any kind of office, but yet there he is.
It wasn't impeached, so like that law will not prevent him from running. So like, is it like 2/3 of majority to have to vote for him to be uh, prevented by that law? So
Right.
the final was not reached. So he's still in that bubble of being judged. So, and he also won in that bubble. So he's still in that bubble. So there was no final
Well,
verdict.
yeah, it's a play on words. He had the votes there to exonerate him, even though he was guilty. Doesn't matter now. It doesn't. The truth doesn't even matter because it's been perverted. So nothing is. Um, I don't see him stopping at anything. I see him just push it through whatever he thinks is right. And like we were talking about earlier, that the rights are a privilege, but the only certain few are privileged to those rights, not everybody. That was even at the beginning of this country, you know. When slavery came in, they didn't give rights to the slaves or to the native people that were already here, and so forth and so on, kind of thing. So yeah, here we are. Here we are, and I remember Aaron saying, uh, just kick back and watch and see what happens. And I think that's all we can do right now is watch and then let the prophecy unfold before our eyes and be a witness to God that everything he said was true. But it was a good presentation. I enjoyed it. I learned a few things. And you do a pretty good presentation, my friend.
Thank you so much, amigos.
Yeah.
And that's why it is really a challenge. And I really love the way El Pimenta described us being observers. Because when you sit back and observe the way things are going, you will really see things clearly because you're taking your time and you're observing what is the argument about. Uh, and you can also come up with a really a good opinion about what people are arguing when you sit back and observe and then act. So I really love that, being observant and actors at the same time.
Well, you know, I
Yeah.
keep thinking about how it says that we're not part of this earth, and if we're not part of it, we shouldn't be emotionally involved in the elections and the things that are going on with man on this earth, and we should be concentrating on what's going to happen in heaven and not here. And I think that that way it separates us from the craziness that's going on. And like you said, now that you're separated, now you can see what's really going on, and you're going, wow, okay, crazy.
Yeah, thank you. When you separate yourself and you can see where the noise is coming from and you can see where the truth is coming from. Thank you so much. Uh, I'll say I will now close with the prayers because my time has gone. Uh, Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. Let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for this time. Thank you for this moment. We have gathered on thy Sabbath. As you have allowed us, you have given us a privilege to bear with you at this moment and to understand what is going around us, to understand why we do things the way we do them, to understand the moment, the time we are living in. It's really a privilege for all of us. May you be with each and everybody as we are going to rest in thy Sabbath and be with all of us. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.